What if the greatest risk to your home is something you can't see? Beneath the lawns, beneath the foundations, beneath the street you drive on every day. Large parts of Gauteng, Centurion, Pretoria, Midrand, the West and East Rand, sit on dolomite ground, and dolomite has a secret. Over time, water dissolves it. Heavy summer rains, leaking pipes, poor drainage, slowly, silently. Cavities form underground, and then one day, the ground moves. Subsidence, cracks in walls, or worse, a sinkhole. By the time you see it, the damage is already done. And here's what makes it even more unsettling. Many property owners only discover the risk when an insurance claim is rejected. This isn't fear, it's awareness. At Vision 2026, we believe knowledge protects property. We're bringing together a geology expert and an insurance specialist to unpack the reality before it becomes a crisis. Because the most dangerous risks are the unseen ones. Join us.
Good morning, everybody. Great to have you all here again. Welcome to our co-hosts and to our guests. Aubrey De Beer, who's joining us today, who's a geologist, and he's going to be talking about sinkholes. You know, one of the things that we are, all of us who live in Pretoria and in Centurion, Midrand, West Rand, East Rand, some of us may have our houses built on dolomite. And when we buy the house, everything seems okay. And then one day we come home and we find our house is gone. So that's just what we're going to be addressing today. What are the risks about dolomite? Where can it be found? And what can we do about it regarding insurance? And that's why we've actually asked Marna Roets from Inscorp Insurance Brokers to tell us about the insurance aspects of buying homes or having homes that are built on dolomite. So welcome to the show. Welcome to Vision 2026. Here we are again. We've got Glenn Jones, our Map for Life coach and planning expert. He's here today to help us to just navigate the planning of how we actually plan our lives. We've got Willem Lombard, who is a life energy coach. He actually ensures our teams actually work to top performance within our companies. So if you need someone to help you with that, then Wilhelm's the man to get hold of. And then we've got Russell John Fagan. He's the man who actually tells us how to actually create a sale and actually to do it effectively. And as he says, you're not born with sales knowledge. You can actually learn it. So if you want to learn how to do sales, get hold of Russell John Fagan. So welcome to the show. Aubrey, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here. And you're going to help us to understand what dolomite is, where it can be found, and what are the dangers regarding dolomite. I'm going to hand over to you. Aubrey.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And hopefully we'll have a very productive session today. And so, yeah, I'm an engineering geologist. I work in the field of geotechnical engineering that mostly deals with foundations investigations. So if you want to build a house or any big, large factory, I'm probably one of the first people that goes onto site to look at the soils, do testing on soils, and then I'll tell you what your problems are going to be when you build your foundations, and I'll give recommendations. Your geotechnical engineer will then come in and do the designs with the structural engineer. So, yeah, and today we have a very interesting topic. It's all about dolomite. It's one of our notorious problem soils. We call it a problem soil in South Africa. We've got multiple problem soils. We've got heaving clays, collapsible soils, even settlement and those type of things. Now, dolomite is one of our problem soils which causes sinkholes. And it's also very unique to South Africa. If you look at it around the world, mostly, the geologist will associate your sinkholes with limestone. Now, the thing is, dolomite and limestone are actually cousins of each other. They're all both a carbon carbon monoxide type of rock, or calcium carbon monoxide rock. The only difference is that dolomite has magnesium in it, and limestone is just pure calcium carbonate. So, and both these rocks are what we will call a karst environment. And a karst environment is basically, in short terms, and I'm going to make it very plain for everybody to understand, I don't want to make it too technical, is a cave system, a very integrated cave system, basically. So most of South Africans probably know about the Sodala caves there close to Nelspruit. That is actually also dolomite. And then we all know about the Cradle of Humankind. If everybody's gone to visit there, that's also part of the Dolomites. So underground, it forms a very integrated cave systems. And it's very well spread. People who like to dive. If you go down to Merton side, there's a place where you can learn diving and do diving and also do some fishing. It's called Bears Lake. That is also a big old dolomite quarry. So a lot of people don't know that. So, but if you, Dave, if you can just share my slides for a moment there, I will just quickly introduce and say. Yeah, this part of yeah, I'm sorry that I can't see what's going. No, it's showing now. Is it the map? I have it. Yeah. This is a slide. This is actually for geotechnical engineering and civil engineering. We have actually a SANS, South African National Standards Code. It's called 1926, and it is one of the most recent codes because in the old days this was called SABS standards. And the SABS standards were basically developed from the American standards and the British standards. We just made it fit South African geology. South African geology is very unique. African geology is very unique to the rest of the world. So we adapted basically the British and American standards to fit South African geology, South African soils. But eventually, in the late, so about 10 years ago, they started to make it everything to the SANS codes, South African National SANS codes. And the SANS 1936 is a very recent code that we developed because of the dolomite problem. And if you can see the date there is 2012 when it was published. But the development of this code probably goes back more than 10 years. You know, when I started working in 2005, we already started doing dolomite stability investigations, which is based on this document. This code is divided into 4 parts. The first part is general explanation of what dolomite is and what is this code for and how it's divided into. And then part 2 is how you do the geotechnical investigations, dolomite stability investigations. And part 3 is basically your design type of what your type of designs will be. And then 4, very few people know about this plan, and the municipality nowadays are getting very strict about this, especially if you want to get your proof of occupancy nowadays, your COC. You will have to have this in place, especially if you live in big townhouses or houses. And this is a big risk for houses in Centurion that is most likely older than 15 or 20 years old, because a lot of these houses don't have it. And also you will find that a lot of geotechnical investigations wasn't done for houses like in Lyttelton, for example, Lyttelton in the old days, or the old houses. It's just in the last 15 years, we can basically say that the investigations has been done on more recent structures. And if you have old houses, you most likely would have done an investigation if you actually had to expand your house or update your plans. So if you can go to this part just tells you a very interesting stat. It says about 96% of sinkholes in urban areas, man-induced structures. It's actually due to water services that leaks. But water services wet service is not the only one that's notorious. Your dry services, a lot of people don't realize that your fiber cables and your electrical cables can also cause it, because some of these cables and these pipes is in pipes, and those pipes tend to crack, and water will actually flow into that pipes, and that will flow downstream and find another little crack in the pipe, and then actually starts leaking there, and then the sinkhole will actually form in that area. So your dry services can also be part of the problem in your services. Now this is just a general map of South Africa and where you can find dolomite, and you will see this where the red blocks is the most areas where the sinkholes are actually more predominant or most problematic. And you can see it is actually in the old Gauteng, the northwest, and then most interesting also in the Northern Cape. Now, in geology, we break our geology down into sequences, or what we call supergroups, but it's just basically time periods of which certain rocks formed. And the dolomites are basically the oldest rocks you can find in what we call the Transvaal supergroup. It was an old inland sea. If you can see, that's outer rims. So this blues are the outer rims of the Transvaal supergroup. And it was basically very shallow seas. And we have the tides that just moved out and pulled back in over a period of time. And in that tide, you had this very interesting algae that grew. It's probably one of your first plant-based organisms in the world that started to produce oxygen on a mass scale. Today, they are not very dominant. There's some that still grows in Australia. Now we call it stromatolites in the rocks. If you look at a dolomite rock, you will actually find very thin lines or streaks of blue in it. So, and we think there were basically two basins. So one is the Transvaal Basin, or the old Transvaal supergroup, and then you also had your Northern Cape group. And there you actually have your iron mines in Sishen, you have Kuruman, and you have Daniel Scale, and that's all dolomite areas. The two distinct between the two is that we talk about mature karst and an immature karst. And this is basically how integrated your cave system underground is. So immature karst is not so integrated. It means that you just have these small little holes, but there is little caves, but they're not integrated. They are not connected with each other. So if you look at the Kuruman Cape, it's not so connected, but you still have sinkholes that develop there. And but if you look at our side, the cave systems are mature. It's very integrated. It is a speculation that, what you have now underneath your feet is also connected to what you can find at the cradle of humankind. They are somehow connected. So if you throw some dye down here on your feet, you might actually end up at Fridefort. That's actually how integrated our cave system is beneath our feet. You can go to the next slide, Dave. Yeah, this is a very old photos. I've taken some of these photos from one of my old employers called Fritz Wagner. And this is a large excavation over an area with dolomite rock in it. And this is basically how it looks underneath your feet. We call this very typical pinnacle formations where your dolomite will have rocks in very deep, we call soils in between them. So when it rains, your rain falls on the ground, the water picks up the carbon monoxide in the ground, and it actually turns it into a carbonous acid. And that acid actually then dissolves over time the rock between the joints and the fractures, and that's what you actually end up having here. What you can see here. Now, believe that if you go a little bit deeper, then you start having your caves and your caverns. And the next image there will probably most likely just show you a nice schematic of how it looks on the ground.
Sure.
And hopefully I can go into a little bit more depth. And this is also a very old nice schematics, which is known in our industry. Those little images where you see it looks like a little bricks, those are basically your rock, dolomite rock, your solid rock. It's almost like with the pinnacles you just saw in the previous image. Those all with the little dots and little circles. Those are basically your soils. And then you also could see your nice cave systems and your voids in between. But this is how typically also it looks underneath our feet, and it can vary in depth. So just to know it, it's not as shallow as what you've seen in a previous image, but it can go actually very deep. Now, if you can see here, it says a little bit sinkhole right next to that little tree over there. It is basically, you will find this little soil cover that's over a cavity or a void. And then you have usually what we call a soil bridge. It's where the soil and the cavity basically connects. And it's very well bridged, so it's very well cemented and connected. But when you have a water pond or a pipe that leaks, the water will go down and erode the soils over that bridge, and then actually the soils will collapse. And it will fall down into the cavity, and then it will actually form a sinkhole. Now, this is a very sudden occurrence. It can happen very quickly. And this is why sometimes over rainy days, the sinkhole is just there the next day. But it's a very sudden occurrence. There's a little tale about in Gauteng, this was during the 1970s, when sinkholes became known as well because of the mining, the gold mining there. Three friends went to play tennis, and they drew straws to play the game. And the one person lost the straw, and he was very upset about it. He went into the clubhouse, get himself a drink, and when he came out, there was this massive hole on the tennis court, the side of the tennis court. And unfortunately, both his friends died. That's just an indication of how quickly this event can happen. You don't even know, that you are in danger. I have also seen videos online where a truck drives over a piece of the road, and the next moment, the hole collapses, and the car behind him just then drives right into the hole. It just shows you how quick and sudden these events can happen. But the basic theory behind this is you have these big cavities and voids underneath the ground. So if you have a leaking pipe, like the little pipe right next to the house there, the water will actually trickle down the soil and it will erode the soil, because most of these soils also have little small receptacles, very small voids and openings. And your soil will actually just erode all along those receptacles and eventually goes into one of these voids. And then the soil will collapse into that hole, and then it will just grow slowly upwards over time. And then eventually a sinkhole will also develop, and then your house will actually collapse underneath it. But like I said, it's a very sudden event, and you don't know when it happens. Like I said, people will sleep overnight. In Gauteng in the old days, it also happened. Somebody had a rose garden and used to love to wet his roses during the day, and it actually eventually swallowed a whole block almost. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of it, but this is when we were not aware of it. So it just shows you how quickly this can happen. We can go to the next slide, Dave, if you want to. Just another nice thing to know as well, these caves and caverns can be filled with water, and this water actually supports the soil on top of it as well. So this is what happens in Gauteng mostly because of the gold mining. Gold lies directly below the dolomites. Now, for these deep minings, you don't want your mine to flood. So what they do is they dewater the dolomite water compartments. And because they open dewatering the area, there is no more stability of the soil. And the soil starts to erode into these big cavities. And then you actually have these sinkholes formed. And Gauteng is notorious for forming very large sinkholes. I have some pictures of it as well. Bobsfontein, it also happens due to the dewatering of the groundwater table. I don't know how it's now managed nowadays, but in the old a few years ago, the farmers, they didn't regulate the water extraction of the groundwater table so well, so they actually drew more water than it was recharging into the water compartments, and a lot of sinkholes developed because of that. So if you have boreholes nowadays in Centurion, you most likely will have to do certain tests, we call pump tests, so that you can know how much water you can withdraw from yourself. during the day, so you don't actually draw more water than actually the groundwater table can recharge. Now, this is part of the dolomite stability investigation. So what we do is we actually determine the inherent risk class of a swell. So we don't go look for sinkholes. We do basically for a gravity survey. It gives you a nice picture of how the bedrock looks below on the ground. So, and then we actually target areas where we can drill, and then we look at the soil profile and see what is the likelihood for that soil to erode if there is a cavity below that. And then we, based on night borals, we give it a class. You see there's 8 classes. And then you have different types of sinkholes, from small to very large sinkholes. And then we give it basically a class from 1 to 8. Now you can see 8 is a very, very notorious, very poor soil conditions. And then we give it a soil designation, and that's the next slide. And it is divided into basically four slides, 4 designations. So D1 and D2, D3, and D4. And the D1 is your, and you have to build on a D4. It will most likely be declined by the NHPRC. NHPRC will tell you not to build there. You might likely be able to build large industries or large factories, but then you need a very specialized design engineer to do those designs. We can go to the next slide as well. So, but this D1, D2, D4, that's what gets into our NHPRC classification. So what will happen if you have to build your house? You have to do a dolomite stability investigation. So if NHPRC sees you're on dolomite, they're going to tell you need to do a dolomite stability investigation, and it needs to be approved by the Council of Geoscience. So when I do the investigation, write my report, give it a designation, I send it to the Council of Geoscience. The Council of Geoscience then approves it. It gives you like what we call a B4 document, and then it goes to the NHPRC, and the NHPRC will actually give the approval. Now, these pictures, I've got it now, and just a couple of pictures, so that you can go through these pictures if you want quickly. But this is just to show you a couple of sinkholes. This is in the 1970s. This is old house. This is the one I talked to you about earlier on about the tennis court. I don't know if it's the same incident, but this is just a picture of a sinkhole that occurred over a tennis court in the Courtenville. Now, this is a very recent sinkhole in Lyttelton. It's where the hospice is and close to the Unitas Hospital. They've actually built a footbridge now over that sinkhole, and this is just a picture from the footbridge. And Marna shared me this photo, and I think this is the house because it's got the same color as well, just across from the sinkhole. These sinkholes are already starting to envelop and swallow the houses around that sinkhole. And that's a big water pipe. That's the water pipe that flows, that gives water to Lyttelton and the Hoovers. This is just a couple of pictures that shows how the damages looks over sinkholes and how bad it can look. These were pictures that shared by Marna as well. So, yeah, I think that's it. My other image there is this is basically a map of where dolomite is located in South Africa, which is basically built on what notorious sinkholes do develop. And just to give you a scale of how large the dolomites is, where dolomites stretch over 7. This big circular form at the bottom, that is what we call the Frederick Dome. That's where a big meteorite impact happened many years ago. Now, everything in blue here and a little bit of purple, that's your dolomite. Now, that pink blotch over there is what we call the Johannesburg Dome. It's all granite. That's where your Midrand and Northern Joburg is mostly located on. And then you have Centurion just above that. And you can see it actually goes around the dome on the top, and it goes all the way down up past the Zeerust, and it even goes into Botswana. And it can go down also to what we call fossil and then there's also close to Orkney and where all your Western deep mines are located. So, and then this little square at the bottom here is what we actually is the Northern Cape Basin, basically. So, just to give you some scale of how extensive dolomite really is, it's not just Centurion. So, it is actually quite vast area. And like I explained, this map is just indicating the water compartments across the whole dolomite area. But thank you. I think that is all from my side. We can actually go out of the slides.
Oh,
what I like to talk about also is mostly about part 4. Sorry, Dave. Yeah?
Yeah, no, carry on. Carry on, Aubrey.
Yeah. I just want my final little notice. I want to talk about the last part of the SANS 1936 code. It's called the Dolomite Risk Management Plan, or Risk Strategy. The code is just a requirement after you've done your investigations. It just shows you how to actually test your pipes and do investigations and inspections on your property. So you do actually just to mitigate the risk for sinkhole formations, because the last thing you want is water ponding and your pipes to leak. So this code just tells you that you basically have to test your pipes almost every annually. We do it every 3 years. My complex here in Lyttelton, we do it every 3 years. So we bring in a plumber, puts a camera down the sewage pipes and the stormwater pipes. We test the pressure of the water, and then we fix all the things that is leaking and that actually got damaged. And you'll be surprised after 3 years, every time you actually have damaged pipes, especially in your stormwater drains. You have these trees that grows into your pipes and stuff like that. So, and then we do also every 3 months, we have somebody coming and doing an annual inspection just to see if there's any sudden movement or, because just to check if there's cracking and all those type of things. And that's what the Dolomite Risk Management Plan is all about. Now, these documents you actually can hand into the municipality for record keeping. So, and the municipality now, like I say, if you want to sell your house, you need to have this now in plan before you can sell your house. And a lot of people don't have COCs or proof of occupancy because they updated their plans and they didn't know you need to do either a geotech study and you need to actually have this in plan. And the municipality is getting very strict about this nowadays. So then your COC gets not approved. And unfortunately, I've had cases where I had to do a dolomite plan for a couple of houses where in the end, the bank, the people who bought the houses lost their home loans because they were waiting too long for the owner to get a COC. So the banks just didn't want to take the risk, and actually the whole home loan fell through the floor. So this can happen. So it's also a plan that takes a long time.
Wow. Aubrey, I must say, you've given us a lot to think about. And one of the things that I was, I always looked at these sinkholes and thinking, why does it just happen there and there and there? And now I understand, because of these columns that you have of dolomite that come out of the soil. So, I mean, they're very, very interesting, I must say. I'd just like to maybe go around the room and just see, anyone would like to comment on what Aubrey said, and then we'll go on to Marna to talk about insurance and how does insurance work with people who have homes in dolomite areas. Glenn, can we start with you?
Thanks, David, and thanks, Aubrey. Very interesting, I must admit. Just a quick question. We've had a couple of sinkholes around our place. I stay in Perth and Renewal, and we've had one literally 3 blocks from us. My question is simply this. It's probably been about 9 years now since that sinkhole took place. I don't understand why it should take so long to get it fixed. I do understand that it needs to settle and all kinds of things like that, but surely it doesn't have to take that long in terms of the settling for them to actually come and fill up and sort it out. I don't know, but maybe my lack of knowledge is showing you. But if you can just explain that to us, it'll really be great. Thanks.
Aubrey?
Yeah, that is a good question. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, it's true. You have to wait for it a little bit to settle, but this is a little bit more integrated with the politics, too deep into. But largely, a lot of our sinkholes, not just Perry for Renewal, they're Lyttelton as well. That sinkhole I showed you that's close to across the hospice. That was a road. That's a main artery road that goes to the hospital. So and that fell just after COVID, and just before COVID, there was another sinkhole that fell just before that, the circle. And it is because of the municipality is mostly our sewage pipes and our stormwater pipes that is leaking. And unfortunately, our water service is just like in Joburg. Our pipes haven't been upgraded and newed up to the standards of what we actually have in our codes, especially in the since 1936. So these pipes are leaking, so sinkholes are forming. And last year I was with a client close to Lyttelton. There was also a sinkhole that formed. And we had somebody from the municipality, I'm not going to call names now, but she was there and she actually explained to us, at that time, there were 66 sinkholes in Centurion and they're all on the waiting list. And she was very upfront and she said, unfortunately, they are not part of the budget. They're not part of the plan, or they can't release money to fix their sinkholes. They are actually on a waiting list and you are going to wait 4 to 5 or 6 years before it gets fixed. That is the unfortunate situation in Centurion, unfortunately, and it's a little bit more political, and I think it's not really part of the scope. But I can understand the frustrations around that for a lot of people. I mean, it's not very common knowledge, but it's the unfortunate situation we are in. I think if Joburg was also built on dolomite, we may have actually had a little bit more exposure to it. But yeah. It all depends. We're all voters, and yeah, I'm not going to point fingers though. So it's a little more political. That's the reason why most of this is getting fixed.
Yeah, Aubrey and I actually decided yesterday we're not going to make this a political discussion, but yeah, it is what it is.
Absolutely. No, okay, fantastic. That answers my question. Yeah. Thanks very much, Aubrey. Appreciate that. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. Let's go to Wilhelm. Wilhelm, you've got a story about sinkholes. Over to you, Wilhelm.
You think so? Okay, that one that I've seen in my geography book. That was many years ago. No, I actually only want to ask, how do they fix it when they fix a sinkhole? Because when you see those things happen to you, luckily, fortunately, I don't stay in that area. So I'm in Waverley. So I think the ground is quite solid here. Maybe you can tell me something else. But how do you fix it? You see this now, there's some signs, and you don't want your house to fall into a hole. How do you fix that thing?
Aubrey?
Yeah, like I said, you can do some inspections. Make sure if your pipeline leaks away from steel and more to your plastic, make sure your joints are very sealed and connected. Nowadays, we actually more recommend to build your pipes above the ground and not underground, because it's easier to detect if there's leaking going on. How it gets fixed as well. You do a geotech investigation also before that, because we need to find out where is all the soil going, where is it eroding. So there is a little hole that all the soil is eroding into, and that's the first thing you need to fix. You need to plug that properly so that it actually, that no more erosion can happen within that soils. And from there, you basically fill it off with rocks, and then right about the 5 meters, we start filling up with soil, but you compact this as well. So while you're filling the rock, you need to compact it as well very well, because the compaction actually decreases the permeability of the rate for the water to flow through the layer in the end. So that's how that's how it usually gets fixed. But it's extensive investigation, and you have usually engineers that designs these fixes. But you need to do a proper investigation before just to know what's happening underground, where is it going, where is this hole, so you can plug it, and so that it actually can prevent not happening again, basically.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Aubrey. Let's go to Russell. Russell, have you got a question?
I don't have a question, but I've got an interesting story, which is quite related to the topic. About 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I was the chairman of the SGB of Hoërskool in Montana, Centurion area. And you guys will recall there was a tragedy at a school in the Vaal Triangle where a Passover bridge of the school collapsed and quite a few children were killed. Obviously, that brought a lot of attention to the SGBs of the high schools, because now we had to look at what was going on with the structural integrity of our buildings. At Hoërskool, because the school was already at that stage about 46 years old, we had a lot of underwater pipe leakages. And the problem with that is you pick it up 30 days later or 60 days later when you get a horrific water bill. And you'll pick up a bit of water coming out at a place and you go and dig and there's nothing, because it's probably 20, 30 meters further where the pipe actually started leaking, and then that water just flows. And we had to get out an engineer to look at the structural integrity of our foundation, specifically because we also have one of those walkover bridges, to make 100% sure, because what they told us, or how we actually got to the point, was that water obviously goes into the foundation has got steel, and over years it just corrodes that steel and your foundation becomes brittle. So that was quite a project that we had to do, a costly project, because we had to get these engineers out and have a look at each and every single building, and fix where they did find issues and so forth. So it's amazing what a leaking pipe that we will have at home kind of like might ignore, or I'll get to it next month, I don't have money now, but we don't understand what's happening underground. With that, sinkholes is one of them, but your structural integrity of the building is another issue. And then the last thing is, I've seen and I've heard about it and read a little bit about the sinkhole on the R21 going from the airport or from the east coming to Pretoria. And since they fixed that, they have picked up so many other problems with the soil around there that they're still today busy drilling. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're actually pumping it full of cement, if I'm not mistaken, those areas. But it's real. It's something that is, even now, if you're just on the highway, you can actually see that is happening. So, yeah, questions I don't have. I've been involved with that, the whole project of what water damage can do to premises. But I didn't know it was as bad as what you've just highlighted. Thank you, Aubrey. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Aubrey. Let's go to Marna. Marna, Marna's an insurance broker, and she understands the insurance game and understands, what are your rights and what is your go-to scenario if there is a problem with regard to sinkholes, dolomite, building on dolomite, not having the right investigations done, etc. Over to you, Marna.
Yes, I think I would like to start to maybe educate or explain certain terms in the insurance industry. One of them would be then obviously subsidence. What does subsidence mean? It means subsidence, if something like that, subsidence and landslip. So subsidence is when the ground goes downwards underneath your house and your house falls into the house. Landslip is when the land moves sideways. So those are the two terms that we normally use in insurance terms. So in dolomite areas, we mostly deal with subsidence, but sometimes insurance policy would group them together as ground movement, because often when your house goes down, it also moves sideways. So it's one event. And then I also want to discuss to you what is an event, because we insure events. That's what we insure. I think I lost you guys.
No, we're here.
We're back. is what is insured. So we insure events, and for a policy to come into play, that event needs to be sudden and unforeseen. So it's something that you don't know about. Next morning you get up, half of your house is down the drain or underneath you, or your pool has sunk away, or your driveway is gone, and that's sudden and unforeseen. But it's not always like that in terms of insurance. There are early signs, and there are things that we can do to prevent our own little piece of land to be kind of protected. So, and it's also about risk appetite. Unfortunately, in the Centurion area specifically, insurers don't have a big appetite for insuring those properties anymore, because it's almost a given. If you are in the Lyttelton area, something might happen to you. I have a client about 4 years ago, I think it's now almost 4 years ago, that a sinkhole fell right in front of a property, and that's also a problem. I always say that this type of cover feels like a traitor within words in your policy wording, because only when something happens you realize, what is insured and what is not. So I want to look at early warning signs that you as a property owner can look at to try and mitigate the risk on your property. So you would go around and look inside your house. Your ceilings might move away from the wall. The doors and the windows get stuck. You can't get them open the way you used to do. Because the level of the ground now moves, and all of a sudden, your house moves downwards, but the door stays the same, something like that. Your floors are uneven, and the tiles might start lifting. There's gaps in your skirting boards, for instance. There is sinking pavements, depressions in your garden, there's soft spots near drains, and also what Aubrey touched on is higher water bills. If your bill is all of a sudden starting to go up, you need to find where that problem is. And also, when it rains, you need to have a look at around your house. Does the water dam up somewhere around your house? Then you need to do something about it to get the water to flow away from your house and not underneath your house. So those are little things that we as homeowners can do our little part in protecting our property. Of course, we have no control over the municipality water services. If the pipes are outside of your house and a burst pipe burst outside your house, in the street, for instance, or next to on the pavement, because that's normally where the water runs through, that is a municipality problem. But inside your property, there are things that you can look out for and can do something about it. So you might have irrigation systems installed in your property. You need to look for where water assembles, and there's more water than there's supposed to be. Then go find that leak, which you might have big tears later on if your property falls into a big hole. Plumbing early. Also, I've what I need to mention is sometimes, when you smell sewage in your house, that might also be because of a leak pipe. And I think Aubrey can agree with that. Sewage is the worst enemy in terms of dolomite. And then, so what is important for me is when you do have insurance and it says a lot of policies include subsidence and landslip automatically or used to, but it's important to know that it's very limited cover. Unless you can provide the insurer with a geotechnical report saying, what is the status underneath your house, which is also very difficult once your house is already built to really see what's going on underneath. I don't know if I already agree with that, but then the insurance company might still say, yes, we have a risk appetite for this, we can insure it, but there are limitations then. They might increase your excess. They might want you to give them a geotechnical report every 3 years or something like that. So if you really want the full cover, you need a geotechnical report to show the insurance company what their risks are involved in this property. So really in terms of, and I think water is not innocent because where water flows, risk follows. Always. Where water flows, risk follows. So make sure that there are no leaking pipes in your property, because remember, you as the homeowner or the property owner or the business owner, the responsibility lies with you to make sure that you have done everything in your power to make sure that your property is risk-free, or as much risk-free as you can get it. And that's from our side. It's important for you to read your schedule. You get a policy schedule. I need to make you understand you get a policy schedule to say this property is insured, this is the values, this is the premium, but you need to read that in conjunction with your policy wording, because that's where all the exclusions are. Like your boundary walls would not be included, your walls around your house might not be included, your pool might not be included in terms of subsidence and landslip cover, your pool pump might be a problem. So you need to read your policy wording in conjunction with your schedule so you can understand especially the exclusions. Now, I do know some of the insurance company would actually in their wording bold, highlight, and sometimes in red show these are the exclusions. But if you're not sure, please speak to your broker so that you can go through and have an understanding of what's covered and what is not covered and what to look out for. And if you're really, really uncertain, get somebody like Aubrey to come and have a look at your property and make some suggestions or where you can actually cover yourself or, maintain your property. And then I'm open for questions.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Marna, that's amazing. I mean, this has been a total masterclass in dolomite and insurance, and I really, thank you for all your participation here. I just want to go around the room again and just ask any questions or anything. Aubrey, do you have a question for Marna regarding insurance at all? Aubrey?
I think there's a bit of a delay.
Sorry, just a quick question. Isn't it looking at insurance? Isn't it a possibility that the insurance can work with specialists like say architects and people like me, the geotechnical engineers and engineering geologists, to look at the risk of sinkhole formations? Like the whole investigation for geotech is to see what is the risk for sinkhole formations. Why is insurance not working closely with more geotechnical engineers and specialists so that you can properly help cover people with dolomites and sinkhole in Centurion area? So, I mean, the insurance brokers could probably look at a certain risk level cut. Like I said, there's a high risk, a medium risk, and a low risk. And you guys can say, okay, we are willing to help you with a low risk and a medium risk. High risk is just not on the table. Is there something like insurance companies can do that and to help people cover for events like this?
Yeah, they actually are making use, and that's why they would specifically ask in high-risk areas, in order, if you want cover for sinkholes or subsidence and landslip, that you need to provide them with a geotechnical report. And nowadays, if you think about Centurion, for instance, the population just boomed over the last 4 decades. I remember when I moved in Centurion, on my way home from work, there was a whole area where it's like a felt. That's all built up now, and the infrastructure can't handle that. And I don't think anybody was ready for the boom we had in our city. But we do, the insurance companies are making use of engineers to help them with areas and where they should actually impose more stricter exclusions maybe or limited cover in a certain way. But I think we as homeowners also have a sort of a responsibility. If I buy a 4 million house, and I just let it go, I mean, whose fault would that be? You need to maintain your property. And also, it's very difficult to say the municipality must do this and that. But if each one of us can just take a little bit of responsibility of the land we own and the property we own, I think it will help. And also boreholes is a big problem we found, that we all want to be independent now from the municipality and water cuts and everything, but that sucks out all the water. And there needs to be some kind of a responsibility on the landowner who has that borehole to think, hang on, what am I doing here? But like you said, there's that plans in place, but we need to get that information to the broader public.
Sure. Thank you so much, Marna. I'm going to quickly there's some questions that have come through. These are some of the comments that have come through. Thanks very much for the what people have said. One of the things I want to ask you, obviously when we have huge rain like we've had over the last over December and that, and then we have drought. The occurrence of sinkholes happening, as you indicated, could happen on either of these occasions, couldn't they, Aubrey? Aubrey?
Oh, sorry. I was reading the comments. Sorry, what was your question again, Dave?
The question is, we have at times of drought and we have times of very heavy rain. And I'm asking can sinkholes happen during both times? Aubrey? I think we've got a bit of a delay.
No, you
here.
just broke up a little bit. Sorry, I missed you again. Yeah.
All right. So what I'm asking is, during drought and during heavy rain seasons, is the occurrence of sinkholes the same?
I will say yes, but just basically because of human activity and the risk for pipelines that's still to leak. But I do think maybe in drier seasons, there's less rains, you might have less triggers, because the rain is actually just a trigger. If the sinkhole forms after heavy rain, that problem was already there, so that erosion has already occurred. Like I told in my speech, the erosion comes from the bottom of and works its way upwards. So in a drier period, that less of rain might not trigger that sinkhole until the next rain comes. But I think the erosion rate below the ground might still be the same because of water pipes that leaks and stuff like that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, thanks for that. Do you want to answer that question?
Sorry, I lost some signal here. Can we just get that question again?
Okay.
Adding more granular, granular data on specific areas. Sorry, like I said, you could go to the Council of Geoscience. That is in Lyttelton. You can also look at their website. They actually do have, like I said, we have to give our reports in for them to review, and so they can get it approved. So they have documentation of all those reports, and it is available to the public. And it doesn't cost much. I mean, if you want to get your report, sometimes for a small area, it can cost you about 500 Rand. It's not around about that area, maybe to 1,000 Rand, but it's cheap, so you can get that information there. It's really available. You can also ask people like us to give you data, but we might actually negotiate a price before that. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, and last question. I think that's just more of a comment, Aubrey. And then we also have, thanks to David as well. David.
Yeah, level 4 specialist.
No?
I discussed your designations, level D1 to D3, D4. D4 is a specialized designation, so you need to be registered as a D4 before you can do D4 investigations. I personally am not a D4. I haven't gone through that process, but there is engineers out there that is a D4, level D4, and I could always advise you for who you could go to. I know specifically a few D4 specialists. So, but will require, if you have a high risk, that's usually your high risk for large sinkholes. You need a specialized engineer to come and do the design level, very experienced, and mostly you should have more than 10 to 15 years experience, specifically in dolomite. So that does exist.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Guys, we've gone over our time, so I'm going to quickly just go around the room and just ask for quick takeaways. I'm going to start with Wilhelm because I know he's got a time constraint. Wilhelm, your takeaway for today.
Thank you, David and Aubrey. That was quite interesting, and I must say I'm a bit afraid. I stress now because there's some things that I need to look at. So thank you to bring this to my attention, and I definitely take action now. Not tomorrow, today. Now we must take action. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Let's go to Russell. Russell?
Yeah, I think, anybody that's in the market to buy a house, it does change a little bit to your perspective of where you buy. And then obviously, are you buying correctly? Have the right information at hand. So it does change the picture. My wife and myself have been looking for quite a while now in preparation to buy. And it changes quite a bit. It changes the scene drastically, actually. It's a pretty house, but what's happening underneath? But with Afrikaners say blink bo, stink onder, or something like that. Is that saying? Because we need to be careful of what we buy and where we buy. So thanks, very informative. Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you so much. Glenn.
Thanks, David, and thanks, Aubrey and Marna. Very informative, I must admit. For myself, we're not house looking. We've been in this house for something like 32 years, and I don't exactly want to move. But it is quite disturbing to see all the sinkholes happening around us. And I certainly need to relook at things again in terms of my short-term policy. So, I thought everything was fine, but I'm now a little bit concerned. But it's a good thing. Awareness is important. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Marna. Marna, what is your big takeaway from today's discussion?
I think if I can keep it to my area of expertise, just to say when a claim is assessed, insurers looks at three things. Was it a sudden and unforeseen event? Would be the one thing. Is the peril insured? And was the risk reasonably maintained? Those are the three things that you always have to keep in mind as a property owner.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Aubrey, I see there's one last question here for you, and then if you could give us your takeaway for today. Aubrey?
Yeah, sorry,
Aubrey.
There's a little bit of delay, so I sometimes miss you guys. Before you buy a house, do your proper due diligence. Now, just make sure that there is a COC in place. Look at the plans, see if the plans are recent and updated, and make sure that they have a dolomite risk management plan. If those things are not in place, kindly just walk away, because it takes a long time to get a COC in place and registered through the council, and for architects will actually agree with me on this, and you can talk to them. It's a very massive process. So just look out for this. Make sure you have a COC in place. Make sure you have a dolomite risk management plan. And also you have the right to say, listen here, can you upgrade your pipes? If it's old pipelines and stuff like that. And you can also check when's the last time they checked the pipes and inspected the pipes. And you can also say, please, can we inspect the pipes, and then we can make a deal. So that's just my advice for any people that wants to invest in Centurion.
Wow. Thanks so much, Aubrey. Thank you, Marna. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Russell. And thanks to Wilhelm. Really great to have you here. Next week, we're going to be talking more about the foot and mouth event, epidemic that's happening here in South Africa. We've got a Dr. Thomas who's going to be coming to talk to us about that. So come and join us. For those of you who are here, please subscribe to our YouTube, our Facebook, or our LinkedIn platforms for Vision 2026. It'll be great to have you here. And then I'd just like to thank everyone for being here. Come along and join the show. We are here every week, every Thursday, 8 to 8:45, and we're here to actually give you knowledge and understanding so that you can be more aware and more informed. So come and join us, and we get experts in to come and talk about certain subjects so that you can be more knowledgeable about what to do in the future. So great to have you all here. Thank you. Thanks to our guests. Thank you to our listeners, and thanks to our co-hosts and our special guests. And we'll see you next week, same time. Bye-bye, all. Cheerio.
Welcome to Vision 2026. We give expertise a voice. A platform where bold ideas, lived expertise, and real experience shape how we grow, lead, and create impact in 2026 and beyond. Meet your host, David Bauer, bid architect and strategic thinker, who helps leaders turn complexity into clarity and gives business leaders a voice that wins in the real world. Marna Roets, seasoned strategist and business leader, helping people protect what they've built and grow with clarity, resilience, and foresight. Glenn Leese-Jones, Map4Life coach with decades of experience guiding people and entrepreneurs to find purpose, set direction, and map their journey to meaningful success. Russell John Fagan, sales mastery trainer, who brings practical sales insight and transformational strategies that help individuals and businesses increase their influence and performance. Wilhelm Lombard, human systems and team performance coach focused on helping organizations strengthen team alignment, leadership energy, and human systems so people are ready for growth before growth exposes weaknesses. Together, we bring unique perspectives and deep expertise so you can think bigger, act bolder, and make 2026 your breakthrough year. Hit that subscribe button now and follow Vision 2026 for your weekly dose of expert insight, future-focused conversations, and real-world perspectives shaping South Africa. This is Vision 2026, giving expertise a voice.